weeks trades. First one, I had MP. So it gapped out on China tariff news. It kind of raised some competition for MP with the China rivals, so that was very good for the company. Also was in an ascending triangle, not quite tight yet, but getting quite nice. Having a bit of a perk up candle, that was, I'm guessing, because of the tariffs, that was 1010 yes, and this is the second day play of the tariffs. We had a very nice clean short or early 60-minute chart with an ABCD off of the 9. Everything else was like pretty clean about it. We were at all-time high, 5-minute, 15-minute, also quite early, so like no consecutive candle extension in it. So we had a hard push out, approximately 500% RVOL, and then a very hard retrace back to pre-market high and 9 EMA, after which we put in a red hammer candle. Not my favorite, plus I didn't really like the aggressive sell-off. Everything else was super clean. So I went to half an hour first, and I thought that maybe if I get some more confirmation, I'll add on the setup. We got a second hammer, which unfortunately I can't see because of triangles, but after we broke out of that, I added another half hour for a full hour. Still didn't like the aggressive push-off, but I think an hour was quite good for it. Unfortunately got me stopped out. Maybe I could have re-entered on the break of this downtrend line, but I don't like downward trend lines after we drop off and then start forming. I like this. I like the forming to start right from the top. Anyways, after that we had a lowering volume pullback. After that, a bit elevating volume rise, barely breaking previous high of the day, and then pulling back almost immediately. Not my favorite yet again, but nice slow low volume pullback. Double hammers there. Added for half an hour. Maybe could have gone 1 hour. Like everything else, still quite nice. 5 minutes quite okay as well. Adding on playing second CCE, consecutive candle extension on the 1 minute. It's just, yeah, yet again, it's just not quite it, but it was quite alright. I think 1 hour could definitely have been a better size here instead of half an hour. Anyways, I wanted to see how far these guys went, and whenever MP was moving, it wasn't really moving nicely. Like the whole chart is very choppy. We gap up, we finish red, we gap up, we put in a huge wick, return to basically middle of the range, close, we then very choppily get moving. So wasn't the biggest fan of that. So I was a bit in trouble with the targeting. I liked the 95 level. We had a $5 ATR. That would have been like 2 ATRs from the open, and we haven't really done any more in any of the mover days here. So I was like, okay, that's a good psychological level. Seems very fair. We had like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-minute CCs by then. So I was like, okay, I think that's pretty cool for a mini short scalp target, or I don't know if that can be described as a scalp, whatever. So I went all out there. Maybe could have trailed like the 9 EMA. We would have basically gotten out at the same price. Could have maybe even trailed structure, but I don't know. Just didn't really have clean big pullbacks, so wasn't the biggest fan of that. I was afraid it was gonna like V-reverse on me or something like that. So I think maybe just a partial here and then trail of the 9. I don't know. It doesn't really matter that much, I think. Of course, I would say otherwise. Had a like trailed along the 9 very nicely, but yeah. So SMR. So we had news of US Army announcing a nuclear power program, which aims to deploy nuclear and microreactors at military bases, which is so whatever they were building, SMR was building as well, so it could provide it for the US Army. So that was very good news for the company, breaking out of a range yet again, not quite tight, and we have basically a window with just a few levels. I think this area here is a bit of a troublesome area, but other than that, a clean window up until like all-time high, which is 53, 50, 55. 60-minute had a nice ABCD. Didn't really get a nice setup within the window. I wasn't really keen on a breakout, like no clean level to break out of. I think like maybe 47.50, but that was like quite late. We set a range on top, maybe could have gone for the breakout of that, like a combined breakout, but I just not the biggest fan of that, and 5-minute really didn't look that great. Anyways, huge volume breaking out. 60-minute second CC is when I started getting a bit interested. We had a huge push up, fake breaking the all-time high, pulling back initially quite high volume, but then lowering nicely and then elevating again on the re-breakout, and then we lose it yet again, and we also lose this initial big high here, sort of from Head and Shoulders. That being said, we still had a catalyst, we still had a very strong stock on quite high volume, and the all-time high level, which we were now under, so it's a bit more risky trading. But it had a very nice pennant on lowering volume. We had a very tight risk. I entered right around here, like I got a really freaking good entry because we had a view up here, we had a nice level, and we had nice tightening. I entered here, stop was going over here, and it looked quite nice. It bounced right from the 5-minute 9MA, so I was trailing that. Then we got back up here, tried to push higher from this mini consolidation, couldn't, get a bit of a dip below, and with that regained strength. We tried to push again, couldn't, double topped, and then just couldn't continue. Basically, oops, we had a volume flop on the second attempt of the trade. I was really just hoping for an elevated volume period the whole day, because we weren't really dropping off until a little after 10, but we just couldn't sustain it. With that, I think we could have run quite far. We had like really big days in the past, and we were basically, so I averaged the ranges of the biggest days, and we were basically at that a bit higher. But I was like, okay, all-time high news, high RVol, maybe we can, if we sustain the volume, we can surpass that. But still, quite risky, so I went in half an hour. I think I babbled on too much about this trade anyway. So SLTP, this was I think my least favorite trade of the week. So put that on news, and then we had a generally elevated volume period, slightly declining in the past couple days, but that's quite alright. We had an uptrending channel, at the top of which we have now put in a 3-bar play, although quite wide range on that hammer. So we finished there. We have a very nice level on the 60-minute chart. We got very tight on the 60-minute, so I'm liking that a whole lot. We unfortunately start drifting off from the highs, which is not my favorite. Going into the open, I like it to stay there, ideally building higher lows. It didn't really happen, so I was quite hesitant, wasn't in the right mind state, and I pulled the trigger quite late. Because of that, because of the hesitation, because of the not so right mind state, I went in half an hour. I think it could have been a full hour. Anyways, we had this level here from the weekly, and then another level which I didn't scroll for. I didn't scroll back enough to see. Anyways, we unfortunately got pinned on this level quite hard and then rejected. Important note how the rejection candle was higher volume than the 2nd-minute expansion candle, so that was a good signal. Ideally, like when I'm like at a master level of trading, probably could have sized off here or just quit my trade entirely. Volume wasn't really that great anyway. It had like I think 200% RVol, which I generally would avoid, but it was a breakout trade, so I usually have very good average on these, average price, and we have a generally elevated volume period, so that also adds on onto it. So yeah, I think half an hour, 1 hour, both are fine. Probably a bit happier with 1 hour and an earlier entry, but that's how it is. The break-even cut was perfectly fine in my opinion. So those are the ones that I took. As for the ones I didn't, I have LAC, not really something worth mentioning about. I didn't really have good volume, didn't really have a good pattern. I just took a screenshot of it. AMPX, so again, not a groundbreaking setup or anything. Just a bit of stair-step movement here. Now breaking out again, quite high volume. 1-minute setup wasn't really nice. It did break out. Volume was a bit all over the place. Didn't really like it. The whole stock is just a bit off. Didn't really like the 60-minute either. How it basically we were just going up without any big pullbacks. But I don't know. Not really an unsustainable manner in this period. I just didn't like the acceleration that followed this period. So yeah, so Navitas, this is something that I think is actually worth talking about. So we had initial peak high here, then a double top oscillating around the level, getting tight right on top of the initial peak high with a tiny range, elevating volume in this period. As we break out of these highs as well. So very, very nice and clean. Now we have gapped out on launch of a new semi-capable of supporting NVIDIA's new VDC system. So that's pretty dang good news for the stock. We basically have this range to run, basically just one level, quote unquote level, to be worried about here, but we passed that quite quickly. So that level had a bit of confirmation on the 60-minute. I'm thinking that was initial. Oh no, that wasn't an IPY. Okay, so that was only a level that I got from this initial peak high here. So that was the only one I had to worry about. Nice proof of the trend intraday. So one leg, second leg, nice volume increase, and then it didn't really decrease on this red candle, but then decreased on this one, which is quite obvious. Anyways, I didn't really like that. I didn't really have time to think about it, to think it through. I also didn't like the rejection of the level. Probably could have gotten like half an hour in retrospect, half an hour, maybe an hour, because it was quite alright. I especially loved the mini gap up right after this gap out day. I'm in love with the mini gap ups before runner days. The 60-minute, 5-minute was quite alright. 60-minute was, I didn't really like the big inward, slightly inward curving pullback, but it was kind of alright. We were resting on top of this structure, tapped into that, and then started running. So volume was pretty average this day, but that was still quite good because we were in an elevated average, generally elevated volume period. Anyways, could have gotten an entry off the 9 here, maybe here too, but I'm thinking this is just a bit too insufficient for me. I would have liked a lengthier consolidation or ascending triangle before we break out. So this was my best bet, retesting. So although we bumped into this high, we were retesting the pre-market high and 9 EMA, and had a setup and had the backwind. So maybe could have gotten half an hour. Anyways, could have trailed 9 EMA. Would not really have gotten me very far. Structure break neither. 20 is like the right in between the two. So anyway, a takeable setup, but nothing really major that I'm so upset about missing out on. Anyways, PGR, just a drop down of a level. Not sure what the news was. Oh yeah, earnings. Had a setup, like didn't really like the 60-minute extension. Didn't really like the choppy pre-market. Intraday setup was quite nice though. RX. Didn't really like how the stock was dead, still within a range, although started moving quite nicely on very heavy volume. But it was just not my kind of shit. 1 minute was off as well, and that was the week basically very boring with the Trump news.